from Guy's Hospital. These are further CGIs showing the lowered height at the eastern end. The second change to the scheme has increased the amount of affordable workspace in the proposal with an extra 617 square metres to now represent 15.9% of the uplift in floor space compared with the policy minimum 10% July scheme that went. These changes mean the slide shown in the July meeting, giving a summary of the proposed development, can be updated with these figures, total office space and the affordable workspace. Officers have written a 40-page supplementary report which explains the design change and the increased affordable workspace. Most of the information and assessment in the officer report to the July Planning Committee remains correct and relevant, has not been repeated in the report. Instead, it focuses on summarising the recent amendments, how the amendments affect the impact on heritage assets, updating other areas of the July report with the revised figures, and considering the improved package of public benefits in the planning balance. It includes cross-references to the relevant paragraph numbers of the July report. So to go through the main areas of the assessment that have changed with the scheme amendments, updates have been made to the floor space areas in the principle of proposed development and affordable workspace topics. The changes maintain the high quality of the office occupation. The design assessment, there are updated paragraphs as the revised scheme sits better in its context with the hospital as a welcome improvement. The heritage impacts have been considered again to 3 heritage assets: Borough High Street Conservation Area, Guy's Hospital and the Georgian Terrace, which I'll go through in more detail later. Reduced height has lowered the harm of 2 of these assets with updated townscape visuals included in later slides. The amendments would result in no material change to the impacts on the community that were previously described. Still, there will be a small reduction in liability with the reduced floor space. Finally, some conditions would need to be updated with the scheme amendments following GLA. The improvements from the design amendments are in how they reduce the massing visible from within and around Guy's Hospital. These images are from the Heritage and Townscape Visual Impact Assessment, showing how a story of the main building view from within the Borough High Street Conservation Area and looking westwards along St. Thomas. As seen from the eastern edge of the hospital quad, 2 stories rather than 3 would be visible above the chapel, which reduces the harm to this Grade 2 star listed building. This improvement has altered the degree of visibility within the quad, hence the degree of harm to the heritage asset, although the scheme remains a new addition to the currently clear sky behind the chapel and this west. The applicant provided further information on where the proposal could be seen when standing in the quads and surrounding streets. Yellow areas are where part of the proposal would be visible from, i.e. the eastern part, northern quad, southern corner. These 2 further images show how when stood close to the centre of the northern quad, only the top corner of the proposal would appear above the chapel's roofline. How when standing close to the chapel, it would be screened. The applicant produced 3 animated walkthroughs of the hospital site to demonstrate how the building would appear when walking around the hospital. The first one is from St Thomas Street, entering the northern quad. Second is walking across the northern quad, east side towards the centre, bit step down, terrace seating that's finally. The third video starts in the corner of the western quad, walks out to the north street. Officers consider there would still be harm to heritage assets, each of which is considered to be within the less than substantial harm range, the view shared by Historic England. The amendments made focused on reducing the visibility of the extended main building from Grade 2 star listed Guy's Hospital to reduce the harm. The amendments have reduced the harm from the earlier design to shift the level from the middle range of less than substantial harm to a low middle level of less than substantial harm. Welcomed. Compared with the earlier design, the amendments have resulted in some reduction in heritage impacts on the street part of the Borough High Street conservation area, do not change the heritage impacts on other parts of the conservation area, and the overall level of harm assessed again to be a middle level, less than substantial harm. Grade 2 listed Georgian Terrace and adjacent Bunch of Grapes Public House, the scale of the proposal and its visibility above or alongside these Georgian buildings, street scheme views, has not changed materially when viewed from the west, southwest, and north, with some reduction in the scale in views looking west alongside the street from the hospital. This remains a middle level of less than substantial harm caused. Heritage benefits to the Georgian Terrace from the refurbishment works continue. Re-consultation was undertaken and responses from 4 organisations were received. Historic England recognises the effort made to reduce the impact of these proposals from locations where it considered the harm to the historic environment would be greatest. However, HE considers these changes have been modest, so the reduction in harm is minimal. The scheme would still fail to respond to the character and appearance of the Borough High Street conservation area through its overbearing scale, massing, and context design. HE considers it would cause considerable harm to the conservation area, a number of its component listed buildings, particularly Guy's Hospital. While HE has confirmed it remains unable to support the proposal, it has confirmed it considers the harm caused would be within the less than substantial range. CAG, the Conservation Area Advisory Group, maintains its objection, describing the revisions as tokenistic and modest due to the significant heritage harm to the conservation area in Guy's Hospital with no on-balance benefit. The addendum paper before you sets out further late comments received, including that CAG objects to the listed building consent application too. Guy's and St Thomas NHS Foundation Trust commented on matters of detail and asked for conditions to protect the hospital's privacy, amenity and operations. Finally, King's College wrote in support of the planning application, is in dialogue with the applicant to take on the affordable workspace as flexible space for start-up businesses, including start-up life science businesses, being close to the amenities and equipment of the university and teaching hospital. The planning balance exercise has been undertaken again, and consideration has been given to whether these heritage harms, noting the reduced level of harm to Guy's Hospital and one part of the Borough High Street conservation area, and the harm to neighbour amenity on the old Kingshead pub, whether these are outweighed by the public benefit scheme. The recent amendments have improved the benefits package to increase the amount of affordable workspace to be delivered on. These benefits include the delivery of approximately 11,000 square metres of additional high-quality office space, centrally located and accessible site within the CAS opportunity area, Bridge Area Vision. The improvements to the quality of the existing office space on the site to be Grade A+ office space that meets current requirements. These delivery of over 1,700 square metres of on-site affordable workspace, such as the provision of jobs and training within the completed scheme as an increase of approximately 675 to 870 jobs compared to existing offices, and including 70 jobs for unemployed local residents. This would come with an increase in local spending from workers. There would also be provision of jobs and training opportunities during the construction stage, including 23 sustained jobs, 22 short courses, and 5 apprentices per resident. The sustainability focus of retrofitting and retaining much of the 1980s structure to reduce the carbon intensity proposal in an extended building that would BREEAM outstanding. There's also the updated plant and improved fabric performance of the facades to improve the carbon emissions. There will be delivery of greening and biodiversity improvements, achieving and slightly exceeding the urban greening factor policy requirements, and 153% improvement on. There would be the provision of public realm and a pocket garden on the site with sea tree planting. So the highways improvements to St Thomas Street to replace the tarmac treatment of widening pavement, and improvements to King's Head Yard to bring it to SCM standards and its accessibility. There will be financial contributions toward transport improvements for TfL's Healthy Streets project for St Thomas Street and Legible London updates. These benefits would be secured by planning obligations and schemes. There would also be the heritage benefit of the renovation of the Georgian Terrace to make it ready for occupation by the affordable workspace and to make its front doors level access. Approximately £3.5 million for Southwark and Mayoral Sill and the retention business rate uplift. Planning balance of the harms and the benefits from the proposal has been undertaken carefully again with the revisions made. Benefits found outweigh the harms of heritage assets and neighbour amenity. The amendments made since July mean officers consider the balance is now further in favour of grant of planning permission. Officers' recommendation for the revised scheme is therefore that planning permission be granted, subject to conditions, the completion of the Section 106 agreement and referral to the Mayor of London, and the listed building consent be granted, subject to conditions. The Director be authorised under delegated authority to make minor modifications to the proposed conditions arising out of detailed negotiations, that the committee has due regard to the potential equalities impacts that are outlined in the July report, and in the event that the requirements of paragraph 1 of the report are not met by the 31st of December, the Director be authorised to refuse planning permission if appropriate for the reasons of 383 of the.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Waiting, I've got two. First of all, you mentioned the uplift in business rates. So these things are sometimes a little difficult to have precision on, but do we have any idea about what that would be?
Very roughly, as you say, it's a definite estimate. Yeah, about £4 million. Yeah, additional.
And the other question I've got is, one of the things that wasn't covered in this report, but was something we looked at the site visit last week, was the impact on the chapel windows. So just to hear a little bit about that, because that was one of the, there were two, I think, really key concerns in the July meeting. One was the impact on the squares in the hospital use and those, the impact area of the chapel.
Thank you, Chair.
I should say that the first thing would be to say that the amendments made reduce the massing on that side because of the relative difference in height of the proposal over the chapel windows. I wouldn't expect it to have greatly improved the amount of light getting to those stained glass windows beyond was described in the July report. And in a moment, I'll look it up as to what the percentages were and give you.
Thank you. I guess as a subsidiary point, that's one of those points we considered at the briefing is actually what was clear from the site visit is a lot of the light is already prevented from getting into the windows. Is there anything that could be done to even improve that? I mean, obviously not by getting buildings out of the way, but are there any sort of artificial?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as you realised, it's on your site visit, the building, because the existing building is currently about the same height as the chapel and about 8 or 9 metres away from it. And insofar as its structure is being retained and extended vertically, the changes to the light reaching that rose window won't really alter sufficiently by this change at the top. There could be improvements to, say, the lighting of that area, and perhaps if the building is lit at night or in some way, sort of a glow of light washing that eastern facade, there might be some sort of reflective light that can blow through the rose window and retain or improve the sort of degree of visibility and the effect of that rose window. I mean, that little narrow space has a sort of southerly aspect, albeit it's very narrow and about, as I said, about 8 or 9 meters. The fact is that will be unhindered by it'll still remain there, that little gap. So from a certain angle, the sun could penetrate into that space, and you would still get some light in there. But the only possible enhancement would be artificial, I would say, and that could be either by, as I say, lighting up that space and making it is a means of escape from the hospital and partly as well, I think, from the building. So it would need to be well lit and so that it's safe for people to use. But then also, if some sort of wash of light could go up onto the building, it might sort of benefit the rose window too.
Thank you. Any further questions from committee members? No? Oh, Councillor Merrill.
Just want to check, I'm trying to read through this, but you say there's an uplift from 10% to 15.9% in the affordable workspace. How much of that uplift is due to the reduction thing from so? In other words, how much more do we actually get for money?
There's an extra 670 metres workspace that will now take over the entirety of the Georgian Terrace, except there's a corridor through on the ground floor that's marked in white, but all the orange would be workspace. But it's definitely more area, not just because we've lost.
That's helpful. Okay. Colin, you. That's fine. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions from members of the committee at this stage. In that case, we will move on to representations. Do we have any objectors present? I understand there is. Would you like to come forward? Okay, I'm going to ask you each to introduce yourselves, and then once we've done that, I will start the clock running on your 3 minutes that you have to present to the committee.
Hi, I'm Benedict Looney, the chair of the Southwark Conservation Area Advisory Group.
You have 3 minutes with which to address the committee.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again since our last meeting in July. CAG was very pleased to see its application challenged by the just wanted to quote what was said that you have had 2 designs rejected, yet you still insist in having a building surrounded by attracting. Why don't you learn from this? This building should nestle between the other buildings. It shouldn't be the star of the show. Our objections remain because nothing has materially changed to the heart of the Heritage Act since last committee meeting. The non-compliance with concur with Historic England clearly states the adjustments since last meeting. They weren't just our words. The applicant was given a second chance to make substantial improvements. You could argue this is. We hope you will now reject it quickly. Clear guidance, but should never be exceeded 7 levels. It should only enhance, improve, and in no way damage, remove any remaining heritage, as ensuring it sits properly in the environment without harm to light at the chapel or other listed assets surrounding. As you know, we have to, in front of us, there is nothing in there fencing the light to the chapel. So let's consider what's in front of us, not likely conjecture. There's also extensive opportunity for amenity in the yard on the roof that would much greater about public benefit and expose wonderful views of Southwark. Currently doesn't.
This is a really important application, and it's just too big and dense. This is the oldest part of old Southwark, part the ancient Roman suburb, the edges of a big medieval hospital, and the precedent of building a really large, substantial office building in the most ancient part of Southwark seems unconscionable. It's going to be seen from all around the neighborhood. Southwark Street, big axial views toward the right, of course, massive impact on St. Thomas's Street. We've talked about the quadrangle, but that's not all of it. There's the King's Head's Yard gets crushed basically with this giant elevation rising on its north side. And it's a dead hand too. In earlier times, these courtyards and alleyways off Borough High Street were filled with life, but this is offering a blank, glazed elevation and also throwing it permanently in shadow from the north side. So the impact is not just on hospital quadrangles around the neighborhood. And this is actually a really precious part of Southwark. And the precedent of building a big fat office building in the oldest part of Southwark just seems totally wrong because there are other vulnerable sites around there. This would really set the balance off. And unusually, Save Britain's Heritage, Historic England, our conservation group, there's a unanimity, a sense that this is a really dangerous old historic centre.
As we previously said, this will bring significant heritage harm. So if you allow this to proceed, it will damage the CA forever and the local townscape from various different Borough High Street. Trying to summarise our objections, the full building and conservation zone, like a significant hard area, overdevelopment.
Brings you to an end in minutes. Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Merrill.
I'm going to play a bit of a devil's advocate, and I'm sure people said this before the Shard went up and knows now it's an historic. It's a site that everyone is nearly in every single film around the world, etc. Saying this is equivalent, but just putting that argument that I'm sure people said this about that. But why is this particular area so different?
It's a mixture of historic buildings from the Georgian period, from the Victorian period, and earlier 17th century buildings round and about. The Shard is different. There was a giant tower, as you probably know well, on the Shard site. Here, it's a delicate bit of historic townscape, and a precious few, but little fragments around Borough High Street, these alleyways to the east and to the west. This is a special site, and it just doesn't get any more historic, and it deserves respect.
And I think as we're in favour of good development. I mean, the Shard is an example of something we should be protecting as a view, and here we are just earlier putting up a building with a pocket. So, you know, I support the Shard as an iconic thing, so that we do everything we can to destroy it. So various other buildings that go. This shouldn't be another example of that happening. It should be celebrated. And all the public benefits that it has, because this building doesn't generate much public amenity. It generates an affordable workspace, but plenty of that else.
Yeah, one of the
We could be
beauties.
bringing to life the King's Card,
Yeah,
you know, with shop fronts, with more drinking space if we need it. You know, that's just going to be a dead alley still around the corner with dead as well.
the beauty of St. Thomas's Street is the contrast between low-scale Georgian Victorian townscape and the mighty towers to the east and north. But when you don't have that contrast, you're just throwing it away.
Okay, any further questions? Page. No, but I think you made some very important points that we'll follow up with the applicant. Thank you very much for coming forward and again and addressing the committee again on this. Okay, would the applicants agents like to come forward? Okay. Again, I'll ask you each to introduce yourselves, and then once you've done that, I'll give you 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Andy White. I'm VP.
James Shipton, Development Manager. Simon Whitaker, Director of Orms Architects. Dan Hine, Director at Deep9 Planning Consultant.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Following the July committee, we've taken on board the comments raised and have constructively engaged with officers. As a result, we've amended our proposals, reduced the townscape and heritage impact, as well as further increasing the public benefit. Key architectural change is the reduction in massing at upper levels to reduce the visibility within the conservation area, particularly from the Guy's Hospital quad and St Thomas Street. The most significant change is to the setting of Guy's Hospital. This was identified as a concern by members in June. As you will have seen from the video and officers' report, our proposals will now not be visible to the majority of the Guy's quad, including in the area by the statue, the main thoroughfare. We consider these changes to be a sensitive and respectful response to the important heritage assets and wider townscape. The team is grateful for the positive meetings with officers to review the proposed changes prior to amending the scheme. In addition to the reduced massing, we've increased the affordable workspace provision to 16%, significantly exceeding the 10% policy compliant level in our previous proposals. The affordable workspace will be located within the listed Georgian Terrace, providing flexible, adaptable spaces to support local businesses. This will revitalise and secure its long-term future, reinstating the historic plan form representing a significant heritage. Since the original submission, we've received strong support for our proposals from King's College, a key local stakeholder and the freehold owner of the buildings forming the Guy's quad. They are also interested in taking the affordable workspace which would support the emerging SC1 life sciences in the district. The enhanced affordable workspace offer is part of a wider public benefits package which supports key aspirations of the Southwark Plan. It includes the creation of over 23,000 square metres of high quality and highly sustainable offices, delivering nearly 900 new jobs. £4 million of Section 106 and SIL contributions, landscaping and greening with a 153% biodiversity net gain, highways and public realm improvements to create a more accessible and welcome experience, and an additional £63 million per year of economic activity. Having carefully weighed the planning balance, officers previously recommended approval. Following the July committee, we've worked hard with officers to respond to your concerns, further reducing heritage harm and increasing the benefits the scheme would provide. We therefore hope that you can now support the officer's recommendation. If you are minded to approve the proposals this evening, we look forward to delivering a wonderful scheme that we're sure will positively transform this part of St Thomas Street, reflecting many years of constructive engagement with Southwark and the local community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was bang on 3 minutes, so well done. Questions from committee? Whilst members are thinking, so Councillor Whittam.
The objectors quoted my comment. I don't think those comments have been addressed by amendment. Just taking off, not even taking off the floor, just like the corner, and that really hasn't addressed my ask for smaller, squatter building, nestled. That's the word I would use all the time. It's to nestle to its own place. The moment it sticks out like a sore thumb. Still does. I was really disappointed when I came back to it like this. So I haven't really got a question. That maybe, why did you not take on my thoughts?
I think, Councillor Whittam, this is a careful balance of a scheme that is deliverable by us. We need to balance heritage harm against public benefits. We also have the previous appeals and the decision from the Secretary of State that did conclude this was a site for a tall building. And we listened hard to the comments raised at the last committee and have looked carefully to make the changes so that we maintain a deliverable scheme, but where we have tried to do is reduce the level of harm.
I wanted to ask, so one of the points the objectors brought up was about the impact on King's Head Yard. I just wanted to hear your...
Thank you, Chair. I think in design terms, we've looked at this area quite closely over various locations as it is developed. And one of the words that was used repeatedly is a sense of intimacy created or exists in those yards. Initially, we actually created a small area of public realm and set the building back slightly. Feedback public DRP was that on the line of that existing pastiche screen. So that is the reason why we have kept the line of the building where it's proposed to be. We have activated that. We've created inset public garden, creating more open fence in that area where there is greater likelihood of people congregating. We also did quite a bit of extensive design historical analysis, character of those yards, coaching in galleried spaces that characterize those buildings, and have sought to replicate or mimic that in our design. We have balconies with balustrades, long sections at the lower levels up 3 on King's Head Yard that will be extensively used by the people that occupy those floors. So that will create a sense of activity. I think I mentioned in July as well, there is a level difference between St Thomas Street and King's Head Yard of about a metre. So actually, if you walk down King's Head Yard, currently ground floor level sits higher than street level, and that's dealt with through a black glass finish, which does nothing to engage the street there. We're changing that for high quality modern glazing that creates that transparency and a sense of activity beyond the glass that we think will, Michael's point, create light spill into the yard that you don't currently get. It's not a very appealing prospect to walk down there right this time of year. That extra light and visibility, oversight of King's Head Yard really help And as Victoria mentioned, we're also significantly upgrading finishes down there. Currently, it's quite even concrete. We would replace that with modern spec wheelchair use. Obviously, we're also widening pavements to make so it would be comprehensive graded. Our design showing respect history of those spaces.
Thank you. And the other question I wanted to ask is, you heard me earlier talk about the lighting of the window chapel. So last year, the report, but just to hear your observations on that. I mean, it's clear. I think that the building probably has a minimal window, but just hear your view. Is there anything to improve those from?
We'd be very happy to discuss strategies for this and that with. We're also placing, as my comment in King's Head Yard, very dark glass spec, greater sense, move the light around the base. Currently, there's a quite hard and absorbing light down. I think there is a solution that we can. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? In that case, I'm going to ask you to return to the public seating area. Thank you very much for coming forward. Thank you for answering our questions. Do we have any supporters of the scheme that live within 100 metres of the site present? Expecting anyone? No? We don't have any ward councillors present either. So that brings us to any further questions arising from the representations. Not seeing any indication other than obviously have the offer about looking at the lighting issue in terms of lighting scheme. Is that something that we can in terms of, and it's already in there. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. Can we have a discussion about where we are? Councillor Whittam, you've shared your view on where things are. So I take it that means that you're likely to vote against this application. Councillor Merrill.
I'm going to be, when I tried to stay an open mind at the last meeting and vote against, or not vote against because we didn't go to the vote, but, consider voting against. I was hoping for some, I can't see how what's been proposed here on the viewing element changes my mind. I appreciate I was more concerned about the workspace element, and that's been addressed, and I think that's an improvement, a very positive improvement. But from the point of just taking a floor off and the actual design looking, I'm still in two minds. So I'll maybe, I hate doing this, but abstention, because I can't see any real reason to use it, apart from I don't think it addresses what we were trying to address by the adjournment.
I mean, I'm going to sort of weigh in. I think I was the one person last committee that was minded to approve, albeit I recognise some of the issues in terms of conservation impact. I am pleased to see what we've come back is providing more affordable workspace, and we have a very positive thing. Also, something else that's changed is a clear indication about the positive impact that King say this would have and how they would like to work with this, and that would be something that would have a real benefit to people at the borough. And we obviously also had the clarification about some of the other material benefits. I do think I entirely understand where CAG are coming from in terms of their concerns about the conservation area, but I do think the developer very clearly has made some sacrifices to address some of the conservation impacts that we had, and clearly at the last committee, the biggest concern that was expressed by committee in terms of conservation was that impact on the Guy Street quadrangle, Guy's Hospital quadrangle. And that very clearly has been addressed. The fact that you can't see this building at all until you move east of Guy's statue. To me, there clearly is a big impact on that. And I think, if you look at how Guy's Tower or the Shard or the News International building all kind of loom over that site, to me it feels difficult to make the argument that this is substantially overly large in that context. And I think particularly it was said by the applicants, there's been a clear steer by the Secretary of State that they expect something that is larger than what's there at the moment to be built in that site, albeit certainly not at the scale of the applications that this council has used in the past. So for me, I would go back to Councillor Mayoral's point. I think it'd be very difficult for us to find substantial reasons we could hang an objection on. There clearly is harm to the conservation area, and we have heard that from CAG and from other boroughs, including Historic England. I'm certainly think those are not wrong to maintain a refusal of this. I think it's very clear that we do have some big material gains for community in terms of employment, in terms of SIL, in terms of the places for the affordable workspace, in terms of business rates, which that is going to be something that this council is going to have to rely more and more on in the future in terms of making its own budget stack up. And so for all of those reasons, I would support this application. However, so on that basis, I would be willing to support the proposal. That can't move forward unless out of the three of us, somebody is willing to second that as an amendment, as a proposal going. So I'm going to throw that back to my colleagues.
This is going to be where I'm going to have to kind of swallow me. I totally agree with what Joe is saying there, that there's material considerations here, and the applicant has done something, maybe not the ideal want to see, has done something to reduce the harm was on that particular view. The CGI that was shown, it was a bit of a cheeky gimmick, but it did show quite specifically views going round, and also view if you start eating the sandwich instead of the other way. So there are those elements to it. I hate to say it, but we do have the financial implications of a refusal to the council going forward. Has to be a consideration we do nowadays. They have to think in those terms. So it is with a heavy heart, because I don't particularly like the view there and would like it protected, but means must. I'm willing to second your proposal, but it is with a heavy. I prefer something better come along.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to move that we adopt the officer's recommendations set out in paragraphs 1 to 5 of the report on page 264. So it's quite lengthy, so bear with me. First of all, the planning permission be granted for application 24 AP 3803, subject to conditions set out in the two reports, completion of section 106 legal agreement, and referral to the Mayor of London. And secondly, the listed building consent be granted for application, reference 24 AP 3804, subject to conditions set out in the two reports and the addendum reports. And thirdly, Director of Plan and Growth be authorised under delegated authority to make any minor modifications to to the proposed conditions arising out of detailed negotiations, which may include the variation and addition of the conditions as drafted, and fourthly, that the planning committee, in making its decision, has due regard to potentials of qualities impacts outlined in the officer report to the 22nd of July 2025 planning committee. And fifthly, in the event that the requirements of paragraph 1 are not met by the 31st of December 2025, is that right? That feels very close. Probably, okay. So we may need to, I mean, obviously this is saying that if it's not met by then the Director of Planning and Growth be authorised to refuse planning permission if appropriate, the reason set out in paragraph 383 of the July report, but I can see the Director in the back of this room, and so in that eventuality, I would leave it to his discretion about what is an appropriate date. Is that seconded?
Oh, seconded, yeah.
Thank you. We'll take a vote on it. Councillor Whittam.
Again,
Councillor Merrill. I'm Councillor Richard Livingstone. I'm voting for that. So the application is granted and the motion is carried. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a safe journey home. Thank you, everybody.
you should have named on the.
Yeah, I'm willing to second it, but I'm not going to vote for you. I'll second it for you, so you can.